All right, settle in, history buffs and action fanatics, because today we are tackling a question that has echoed through the halls of internet forums and late-night debates for years. In one corner, we have the legendary Viking king, the master of raids and sagas, Ragnar Lothbrok. And in the other corner, the epitome of discipline and raw courage, the king of Sparta himself, Leonidas. This isn't just a fantasy matchup, it's a clash of civilizations, a battle of beards versus abs, a showdown to answer the ultimate question: who would win? Let's break down our contenders. First up, Ragnar Lothbrok. Now, whether he was one man or a composite of several legends is a topic for another day. For our purposes, we're talking about the Ragnar of the sagas and popular culture, a brilliant strategist, a fearless explorer, and a leader who inspired fanatical loyalty. Ragnar wasn't just a brute with an axe, he was cunning. He was the guy who would feign death to get inside a city's walls, or use clever tactics to overcome a larger force. His Vikings were a terrifying force, driven by a desire for glory, wealth, and a glorious death that would earn them a seat in Valhalla. They were masters of the sea, experts in lightning-fast raids, and their berserkers were the shock troops of the ancient world. Now, let's turn our attention to the other side of the battlefield, Leonidas and his 300 Spartans. These weren't just soldiers, they were the product of the Agoge, the most brutal and rigorous training regimen in history. From the age of 7, Spartan boys were forged into living weapons. They were taught to endure pain, to fight as a single cohesive unit, and to value the state above their own lives. Leonidas, as their king, was the pinnacle of this system. His 300 were his royal guard, the elite of the elite. Their weapon was the Phalanx, a wall of bronze shields and deadly spears that was virtually unstoppable on a level playing field. Their discipline was legendary, their courage absolute. Their motto was simple: come back with your shield, or on it. So, let's set the stage. A hypothetical battlefield. Let's say it's a neutral ground, a coastal plain with some light woods nearby. Not Thermopylae's narrow pass, which heavily favored the Spartans, nor an open sea, which is the Vikings' playground. A fair fight. 300 of Ragnar's best raiders against Leonidas and his 300 chosen warriors. The horn sounds. What happens next? Initially, things look bad for the Vikings. The Spartans would form their phalanx almost instantly. It's a terrifying sight. A solid wall of muscle, bronze and iron moving as one organism. The Vikings, who are more accustomed to chaotic, individualistic fighting, would likely charge. Their axes, swords, and sheer ferocity would crash against the Spartan shield wall like a wave against a cliff. And the cliff would hold. The Spartans, protected by their large hoplon shields and bronze armor, would methodically jab forward with their dory spears from behind the safety of their wall, picking off the exposed Vikings one by one. The first wave of the Viking charge would likely be a disaster. They would lose dozens of men without inflicting much damage. But this is where Ragnar's genius comes into play. Ragnar isn't an idiot. He wouldn't just keep throwing his men against an unbreakable wall. After that first brutal exchange, he would pull back. He would see that a head-on assault is suicide. This is where the battle shifts from a contest of pure strength to a game of wits. Ragnar would use the terrain. He'd send his men into the woods using guerrilla tactics. They'd harass the Spartan flanks, using throwing axes and bows to break their perfect formation. The Vikings were masters of ambush and irregular warfare. Leonidas, however, is no fool either. He understands the weakness of the phalanx is its flanks and rear. He wouldn't just stand there and let the Vikings surround him. He would try to anchor his flank against a natural obstacle, perhaps the coastline, or a dense part of the woods. The Spartans are disciplined. They wouldn't break formation and chase the Vikings into the trees. That's exactly what Ragnar would want. The battle would become a tense stalemate. The Spartans, a defensive powerhouse, would hold their ground, daring the Vikings to attack. The Vikings, masters of hit and run, would circle them like wolves, looking for any sign of weakness, any gap in the shield wall. So, who has the edge? Let's talk about equipment. The Spartan hoplite was a tank. a bronze helmet, a breastplate, greaves, and that massive shield. They were heavily protected. Their primary weapon, the dory, was a long spear, perfect for fighting in formation. Their secondary weapon, the xiphos, was a short sword for close quarters fighting if the phalanx broke. The Vikings were more lightly armored. Many would wear leather or chainmail, but some might have little more than a shield and a helmet. This made them faster and more agile, but also much more vulnerable. Their iconic weapon, the Dane axe, was a terrifying weapon capable of splitting a shield or crushing a helmet, but it required a two-handed swing, leaving the user exposed. This difference in gear is crucial. In a one-on-one duel, a skilled Viking with an axe could potentially overwhelm a Spartan. But this isn't a series of duels, it's a battle between two units. The Spartan AS heavy armor and disciplined formation are designed specifically to counter the kind of chaotic charge the Vikings excel at. The Vikings' lighter armor, while a disadvantage against Spartan spears, allows for the speed and stamina needed for guerrilla tactics. Let's bring it back to the leaders. Leonidas is the ultimate commander of a set-piece battle. His entire life has been about discipline, formation, and holding the line. His men will follow his orders without question, even to their certain death. He inspires through his own unshakable presence at the front of the line. Ragnar is different. He inspires through charisma, cleverness, and the promise of glory and plunder. His men are more independent, more likely to take initiative. This could be a strength and a weakness. A strength because they can adapt to a changing situation. A weakness because they might not hold a formation as rigidly as the Spartans. So, how does this end? As the day wears on, the Spartans, encased in heavy bronze under the sun, would begin to tire. Their formation is physically demanding to maintain. The Vikings, lighter and more mobile, have the advantage in a battle of attrition. Ragnar would likely feign a retreat. He'd have his forces pull back, trying to bait the Spartans into breaking their formation and giving chase. Would Leonidas fall for it? It's unlikely. He's too disciplined. But his men, after hours of standing in formation and being peppered with arrows and axes, might grow impatient. Here's my final analysis. In a straight-up fight on an open field, the Spartan phalanx wins 9 times out of 10. The discipline and equipment are just too much for the Viking charge. However, the battle is rarely just a straight-up fight when Ragnar Lothbrok is involved. Ragnar's best chance, and it's a good one, is to refuse to engage the phalanx head-on. He would turn it into a long, drawn-out guerrilla war. He'd use the terrain, psychological warfare, and the superior endurance of his more lightly armored men to wear the Spartans down. Ultimately, I believe it would come down to a single mistake. If the Spartans can force the Vikings into a decisive, head-on engagement, they win. They would grind the Vikings down with ruthless efficiency. But if Ragnar can successfully bait even a small part of the Spartan force to break formation, or if he can lure them into terrain that disrupts their phalanx, like dense woods or uneven ground, the tide turns. The Vikings, as superior individual fighters in a chaotic melee, would exploit that opening mercilessly. The phalanx would crumble from the inside out. So, who wins? I have to give the slightest of edges to Ragnar Lothbrok, not because his warriors are better, but because he is the more adaptable and cunning strategist in this specific scenario. Leonidas is a master of one, perfect form of warfare. Ragnar is a master of chaos. And in a battle between order and chaos, chaos often finds a way to win by changing the rules of the game. It would be a brutal, bloody affair, with massive casualties on both sides. The field would be littered with beards and abs. But in the end, I see Ragnar standing over a broken phalanx, not through brute force, but through sheer, bloody-minded cunning. What do you guys think? Did I get it right? Who would you put your money on in this epic clash of titans? Let me know down in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this historical showdown, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.